Okay, we're live. So, first dev call of 2015. We have a wiki page up again. I'm just going to post it in the chat. So for everyone who's tuning in for the first time, um, like basically we coordinate these calls through our IRC channel, Poundkin Radio. So don't write me a message on G Plus or anything and expect me to see that in time for you to send get out an invite. If you want to join the call, join Poundkin Radio, and you can watch the video on YouTube. It's slightly delayed, but it's usually enough to still ask questions, and you can also join the call. There's a limited number of slots, but we've never actually maxed that out. So if you want to join the call, just ping me in chat. Okay, and the first thing we want to talk about today is the Swig issue. So for anyone who hasn't heard this yet, it was on our news ticker and also on the mailing list. Swig 303 introduces an issue that is actually quite interesting, where it properly lists all the arguments and functions instead of using a KW args. However, the way it's implemented doesn't actually work for us. So Swig 303 is actually broken on this point, and yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing that we can actually do at this point is probably not allow Swig 303, and then hope it gets fixed in one of the next versions. So is there anything we're gonna do about this? Like put this into CMake as a bad Swig version or something like that?
Michael, do you want to speak on this since you've been the guy in touch with the Swig community?
Well, to address Martin, yeah, we probably want to ban 303 and 304 because 304 was just released yesterday and it doesn't quite fix the whole issue. The Swig devs pushed another commit this morning or last night, whichever, which does actually fix it, at least for GNU Radio's purposes. So I finished testing all that this morning and verified it worked, got back to them, and they're going to release 305 shortly to fix all this crap. Basically what it does is it kind of forces going back to using the args as opposed to specific arguments for a lot of stuff, unless it's obvious that they can get away with it. And so, you know, it's one way of fixing the problem, and given how generic C++ can be with respect to setting default arguments, it's probably not a bad way for them to do it.
It's a little too bad. I liked the feature itself, so I was hoping we were actually going to be able to come out with a fix to to support that and make it work for all of these cases. But okay, all right. So yeah, we're gonna have to we'll put that on the to-do. Is have a fix to CMake to ban those versions.
So you're saying that with 305 we don't need to make any changes to the actual code?
Correct. 303 and 304 contain issues where GNU Radio won't compile. It won't even build, assuming you're using the Swig interface,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I seem to recall, I'd have to go look at the code, it's been a while, but we go out of our way to specifically turn on that feature in one of the options to Swig, or at least we used to enable keyword arguments. But that was an optimization, it wasn't required. I'm wondering if we took that out, what difference it would make.
If we took it out, then most of the stuff would go back to using just plain old args. But they put in a parser now that will separate out the stuff that can be keyworded properly versus stuff that can't be keyworded properly. And that was what the fix that was pushed today does.
No, but with the with 303 and 304, would it work by turning off that Swig option?
304 will work by turning off that option, I'm pretty sure. I haven't tested 303 yet, but I can pretty easily do that.
So, well, from there, so 303 is not going to work. So we have to put a ban on that one. And if they're releasing 305 so soon after 304, then who's actually going to be picking up 304 to put into a Linux distro?
Well, or 303, quite honestly, because 303 hasn't been out for very long either.
Right.
Yeah, I think the simplest path is just to ban both and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it comes up, if like some, Fedora 22 ends up using 304, we could, I suppose, put in a special if 304 don't use the keywords or something like that. But I kind of feel like we just wait until to see if people come back at us with, we absolutely need this one to work.
Yeah. So I think banning versions should be much simpler than,
Yeah.
depending on the version, do this. So who's gonna do the CMake changes?
Michael, you've been kind of our CMake guy, and you've been able to test this. If you can, I can certainly do it as well. But if you can, I think I'd rather trust it in your hands.
Sure, I can do that.
Hey, and now you're our swig guy too.
Yeah, just what I probably.
CMake, good guy.
Well, I have to admit, the Swig developers have been great. We've been back and forth quite a bit over the past few days about this, and they've been really helpful. So
That's good to know. Good.
So yeah, I'll put it on my queue.
Cool. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this issue. There's nothing we can do. Next on the list is the announcements for FOSDEM and Hackfest. I'm just gonna throw this to you, Tom.
Yep. So we've talked about this past couple of dev calls already, so I won't go into much detail here. But starting on January 26th, we have our Hackfest at TU Delft in the Netherlands. We've got a pretty good group already coming, and I've already started. On the wiki page for this Hackfest call, I put the links into for this dev call, I put the link into the Delft Hackfest. I've already thrown down a couple of my project ideas that I hope to bring, that I'll bring to the Hackfest. See if anybody is interested in them. Kind of figure out what's going on. Right now, it's our normal Hackfest wiki page, which is let's talk about some ideas, and then at the end of the Hackfest or during, as people are doing stuff, I'd like to see this page get filled out with things people are actually working on and we're doing. So we'll use this as our page to capture what happens there. I will be emailing the individual people who are coming, who I've already been, who have told me that they want to come and are kind of on our list. I'll email everybody the details of, when and where, and some other information about Wi-Fi or internet access while we're there and stuff like that. I'll probably get that out early next week, so everybody can be prepared for the week after. So I think that's all there is really to say about that Hackfest. Just mostly wanted to point out the wiki page so that everybody knows where to go to find information about what we want to work on and what we end up working on. And then FOSDEM, again, we've talked about this enough. There's been a lot of information out there. This is so we're all set. We've got a full day of FOSDEM SDR activity. Not all GNU Radio, just general open source SDR activity. So really looking forward to it. So this is more of a call just to make sure that people who are coming to FOSDEM know about it, that what we're doing, and where to find information, find our schedule, et cetera, et cetera. But should be great. It was awesome last year. I expect it to be even better this year. So. So come and join us if you are in or can get to Brussels. I guess it's not next weekend, but the following weekend. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say. Philip, did you want to mention anything about FOSDEM since you're fairly heavily involved and have been for a couple of years there?
Not really. Just show up, be prepared, have fun. That's about it. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Yeah, any questions on the Hackfest or FOSDEM? Okay. Yeah, I think we've talked about them enough as far as what's going on there.
Okay, so yeah. Not much else we need to add there. Okay, let's talk about the unit testing.
Yeah, so I put this on here because it's come up. We had a little bit of an issue with our last version release. There were a lot of kind of fairly small but useful features that went into the code that ended up causing unintended consequences in other places, and we didn't have full coverage, test coverage, or use coverage, and so we kept kind of finding these really little things that had to be tweaked and fixed up. Unfortunately, and he's not here to defend himself, but unfortunately, a number of these happened in GRC. So there were a lot of little issues. In fact, one issue made it all the way through to the release when we actually released it. So we'll have to be pushing out a patched version fairly quickly on this one for a particular bug in GRC. And I think one of the big issues that we've been failing to do for a while, for too long now, is having proper unit tests and QA for GRC. There's like no way that we have to test GRC capabilities or features except to just have them out there and let people run them against whatever code they have, or making new flow graphs and stuff. So I'd really like to brainstorm, and we don't have a good solution for this right now because so much of it is graphical, and I'm assuming people who do a lot of UI stuff probably have developed some unit testing techniques, but we don't really have them. CPP unit and Python unit testing that we use right now doesn't really cover how things happen in GRC. So the first thing that I thought of that's kind of that's doable in a fairly short time period to get some amount of coverage, unit testing coverage over on GRC, is to have a set of known GRC files, .grc files that exercise as many different things as we can do. All the different blocks, the connections, the data types, these types of things, and at least just have a set of those and run grcc, or the GRC compiler, so that we can convert from the GRC file into Python. That will hopefully provide a significant amount of coverage of the features that we can do in an automated, command line oriented testing fashion. So I'd like to see us at least have that done. Now this crosses over, so this is kind of like hitting a couple of things at once. The concept of having this large set of GRC files, I've kind of already started on my own terms because it's just been useful to me, especially as we were going from 3.6 to 3.7 and doing all sorts of modifications there. I have this huge set of GRC files to exercise pretty much like every individual block in GNU Radio. So it's it's like the bare minimum to get a block that does something. Just to test it to make sure that it completes its job properly. Really half-assed on my part to do that. It really was kind of like, this is just for me to test things. But if we can take that idea, kind of make it a little bit more professional, make sure everything works properly, then we not only have a set of GRC files that exercises every single block that we have available in GNU Radio for GRC testing purposes, it's also now a pretty good collection of examples and what do inputs and what do parameters look like for all of these different blocks. So if I can probably get help, and this might be something, I'll bring all of my code to the Hackfest. So if I can get people to pick up on this, and so that it's somebody that's other than just one person, i.e. me, getting coverage over the different input parameters and different inputs and outputs of each of these blocks, this should provide us with a couple of really nice features for people to, again, testing, usability, examples, and documentation.
I suggest that you guys work on the test harness at the Hackfest and make it so that the GRC files themselves can be easily contributed in a separate directory, so that we can push this out and invite people to start adding GRC files that have different things. That'll sort of parallelize development of these potentially hundreds of GRC files.
Yep. Might even start this as an external repo. a different repo of just GRC files, and then we would right now individually run the tests against that, and then hopefully bring it back together at the end. But yeah, we can. I think that's probably a good idea to have the testing framework in place. Yeah.
And also, you made a comment about the UI developer unit testing and that. I know this exists in the Windows world. There's actually software that can run something in a VM and create clicks on different parts of the screen to verify that menu's open and stuff like that. I have no idea if equivalent functionality exists in the Linux world, but the idea is there. So it's something we can investigate.
And if we can bring in more UI people, maybe they can, help us with that.
So we already have a lot of GRC files in the examples directories. So,
certainly do. Yep.
So why not just extend that, or start there at least? Most of the GRC files in the examples directories, they can be run directly. So I guess we could run grcc over those.
Yeah, that's a good start. This was kind of the reason why I was saying this is my thought here on having this set of files that just does basically just uses one block. So you have because it feels like a unit test at that point.
Yeah. Also, grcc will catch compile time problems, but not runtime problems. For example, the recent virtual source issue that caused this patch release would not have been caught by grcc.
Well, you can execute the Python file and just see if it doesn't crash.
Yeah. Well, so in an automated test harness, though, when you do that, it can't rely on hardware. It has to be able to be guaranteed to finish either in error or in success in a finite amount of time. There's a few requirements for running a Python script in an automated test harness that our examples, would fail because you have to stop them manually, for example.
Well, even CMake has a feature where you can run an executable for give it a timeout and then it just kills it if it doesn't finish in that amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could work, but also remember again the hardware requirements and the GUI requirements, because a lot of these have attachments to a GUI, so it's not like if we're running this on Jenkins or a Jenkins instance, all those are going to fail because they don't have a X window to attach to.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not like that's impossible, but those are definitely issues, parts of issues that we have to think about to extend this. But yeah, like I said, I think part of the reason for my thinking of the unit test.grc files is also to provide a set of examples for every single block, so that we can point people from the documentation for each block saying, hey, and look at this example. This will teach you just how that one block works and what its input parameter kind of range is. Because right now, if you go to you try to figure out some of these blocks and you look at this gigantic actual example that does a lot, it's hard to identify how the individual block works. So this, as I said, this functions on multiple levels. However, I do think that the current GRC examples should play a part in this as well. If we're going to GRCC all the things, we might as well add those as well.
Completely forgot to take notes. Okay, so I think a good idea, a good action item to take out of this is that maybe you can sort of think about this at the Hackfest and make it, make some specific action items where people can chip in and help. Because just setting up a GRC test harness, it's still a bit of a vague task. It needs to be specified a bit more before we can actually act on that. But so I think the general action items that we can take away from this are that we want to have all we can to test GRC in all ways possible. and specifically, we want to have a set of example GRC files that we can run as unit tests. And yeah, any help, on that is highly appreciated.
Yeah, and also help on figuring out methods or tools to do the runtime testing that we might need.
Sylvain,
Yep.
can you just bring up what you wanted to say, and I'll just put in some notes in the chat while you do that.
Sure. So, I mean, it's about the PDU to DAC stream issue. I mean, I've just seen Jonathan's response. Yeah, I mean, obviously in 3.8, it would be better to have a better mechanism to be able to handle that more properly. However, 3.8 is probably not next week, and that's kind of a serious issue to have just a block spinning. And so, is there any downside to just adding the wait with timeout, other than the fact that it's not the cleanest possible solution?
I don't know of any downside other than it kind of sticks out as a way of doing things that other people will emulate. But I mean, we've run into this problem with other sources like the UDP source as well, because it's waiting on a select call or a socket read.
Right.
So and we fix it the same way. We block with a timeout. There's a more general purpose solution to this, but it is something that requires some scheduler changes.
I mean, like I think it's going to be very hard to suppress all. I mean, when you have a signal processing block, obviously you never have any problems. But when you start talking to the external world or external libraries and stuff like that, you're always going to possibly have some code that might block. Would it make sense to have the scheduler always send a signal? Can you send a signal to a thread so that all system calls are interrupted, and so that you can be sure that even if you didn't set a timeout, the select is going to return or that kind of stuff?
So I don't think that all system calls can be interrupted that way, and it also relies on the software to not treat e-interrupt or e-again as an error condition.
Yeah,
some
sure,
code doesn't,
of course.
So that's putting our fate in the hands of somebody else writing code.
Sure.
The specific problem with this block is that, I mean, the scheduler tries very hard not to call the work function until it has something to do. And in the case of the PDU to tag stream, it doesn't have anything to do until the PDU queue has at least one entry. And so we need a way for a block to say, don't call me unless there are pending messages. Or work function, don't call me unless there are pending messages. And so
sure, but then,
then the block at that point is in the GNU Radio scheduler with that select or that blocking call being a common point of blocking for all the things a scheduler needs to block on: messages, upstream and downstream, buffer size changes, all of that.
Right, but like if you implemented like as a special case of handling of being able to add a message port in the waitlist, you haven't solved the problem for like the UDP source as you just mentioned.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. This particular one, the reason is because the work function keeps getting called over and over again with nothing to do. And maybe
right.
There's a general class of blocks we're going to run into that with. We have PDU to tag stream. There are a couple of other ones that basically any block that outputs streaming stuff and takes in PDUs is going to have this problem.
Which I feel like we're going to see that more and more.
So we could solve this class of problem by adding a way to call into the scheduler, like during the constructor, to say, I'm PDU dependent on my work function, and so the work function just never gets called unless one of the message queues is not empty.
Sure, but you
That's-
might.
that-
Okay, you might. You have to, because like if what am I? Like, imagine that when it receives the PDU, it has some work to generate that it can't do in a single iteration of the work function, because, for example, it generates too much data to fit in the buffer. The block has to be able to say, okay, sometimes I need data from a PDU, but sometimes I also need to just be called because I have some stuff internally buffered.
Yeah, well, I mean, this issue came up years ago, and one of the ideas was a return value from work that says "Don't call me again."
Okay.
But if you return normally, then it works
Right.
the way it does now,
Okay.
and that way you can turn that on and off on a per work call basis. I mean, this is really good stuff for I think I don't know what you want to call it, a focus group on future scheduler changes. But the bigger
Right.
picture of blocking in the work function basically hangs up the whole GNU radio thread for that block, and so none of the messages get, other message queues get handled. None of the updates in terms of the buffer sizes and all of that, get handled.
Okay. Okay.
So I would
probably-
suggest, before we move off this, I would suggest that for the very short term, to solve the immediate problem, that timeout fix is an easy one, and we put it in there.
Yeah.
Maybe with a fix me there that says,
Yeah. Sure.
something that will call attention to it on the way, when we get back to it.
So, question. So this timeout call, the one that pops the message queue with the timeout. I mean, this is all our code. Can we interrupt that ourselves when the scheduler needs the block to exit the work function? Is there any way we could do that? Because this is something that is all in our control. We could immediate timeout if required by the scheduler.
We do
this
put a
is-
boost interrupts position there, but that's for like SIGINT interrupts, not, as Jonathan was saying, there's other things, other consequences that happen if you're blocking, aside from just the exit condition.
Yeah. It may be possible to do what you're asking, but it would only solve part of the problem.
Hmm.
I mean, this used to be worse. When we had the single-threaded scheduler, it would hang up all the blocks.
Right.
Now it just hangs up itself, which is vastly better. But maybe we should start a mailing list thread about it, so we can toss these ideas around.
And we should probably assign it to the working group, the fast working group.
Yeah.
I haven't actually heard from Tim if there's a call schedule or anything. But I mean that's why we started that working group. So
Yeah. Right now, in Tim's defense, I don't think his body has a clue what time zone he's in. He's been pinging back and forth around the world for the past couple of weeks, and will be for a little while longer. So, but we'll catch up with him. He should be in the Netherlands with us in a little over a week.
yeah. And we've also we've done this a couple of times in the past where we just said
Yeah.
you should solve this for us. Yeah, I feel a bit bad, but I mean, feel a bit bad just dumping it on him when he isn't on the call. But I mean, that's exactly why we created that working group. So
Right.
yeah, we should probably take note of that. But it sounds like having the timeout in there is an easy fix that we can all live with right now, because it's not nice, but it's still better than the CPU eating the block eating up all the CPU cycles.
Yeah. So who wants to take?
Yeah, I'll cut it. I mean.
Cool. All right.
Cool. Good. Good. Yeah. The only other thing I have on the agenda is the working groups. So unless I'd like to put them at the end, so if someone else has something else to say.
I have hopefully a quick agenda topic that might be of interest, but it might not. Talk a little bit about the DVD image.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, did you want to do that before the working groups or after?
Is it just an announcement?
Well, it's not an announcement. It's an idea that you and I talked about getting
Okay.
the mastering scripts up.
Yeah, I mean, we've already started talking about it, so just go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, the GNU Radio DVD is now at the point where building it is completely automated. You can get clone from I get clone from a repo and then type make, and it'll do everything from scratch and end up with the ISO file. A request came over IRC to make those scripts public to allow people to do their own, with additional software on it or some other change. I think it's a good idea, but I don't know how broad appeal that would be. And it's quite a bit of work actually to turn these scripts into something that only I use to something that other people can use on their own systems without my infrastructure. So I guess I'm asking, does anyone really care about being able to do this?
I mean, as you said, we've already talked about this, but I think this is a great idea and very much in the open source project sense.
Well, one thing that, again, because it is automated, there's about 20 out-of-tree modules that get compiled and installed via PyBombs. And each of those has its own quirks about things that might have to happen after the PyBomb script finishes, extra files to install or whatever. And so there's not a concept of like a single file recipe like PyBombs has, but there are ways of incrementally adding things to the scripts via .d directories. So somebody could take this and go add, a couple of pieces or script fragments to go install something different than what's on the DVD. My personal interest is in seeing more sort of tutorial example, things like you would see on the Edis USB stick. All the nice fancy apps and icons and all of that, which are completely missing from the DVD. So the only value I personally would see would be that other people would take up this script and start adding some of these nice end user beginner type things to the DVD, and so I don't have to do it all myself. I just don't know if there's anybody who would be willing to start doing that.
So I think there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. So maybe nobody feels like it right now, but if we, have it out there, and then someone says, I wrote this cool thing, I'd like it to be on the DVD, and then we can, and if it's published, then we can say, yeah, sure, go ahead, add a pull request to our GitHub thing, and if this becomes a thing, then if stuff stops working, then we can just take it out of the DVD of the recipe and assign fixing the bug to the maintainer of that project or whatever. So I think we don't lose much. I mean it's your stuff anyway. But I think I don't think it has any disadvantages. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, you know how it is when you write something for yourself versus when you write something that other people are going to use.
We all know that.
Yeah. You have to go grep all the swear words out and
all the /home/J Corgan.
Fortunately, I've done that already, but.
But yeah, Sean was the one that asked, and I imagine he's interested because he wants his, people that in the research group that he works with at Georgia Tech to have easy access to build, to launch and install and whatever a GNU Radio instance. You obviously wanted this because it helps you in your coursework, your classes on GNU Radio. I think you're going to find, as Martin says, kind of a chicken and the egg. So. Individuals who just use this to get themselves up and running with GNU Radio probably aren't going to be contributing that much. Guys like myself or a lot of the other developers who just have their Linux boxes and install it probably aren't going to help that much. But I think if you find it, if this gets out as a teaching tool and people pick that up, that's when you're going to start getting the kind of feedback that you're hoping for.
All right. Well, what I'll probably do is start with a private repo. Martin and I talked about this, and sort of get things in order, and then we can make it public. And at some point, I actually have to document it as well.
Right.
Okay. Cool. More stuff on our GitHub. Woo. Okay. Yeah. Then I'm gonna go ahead with the working groups. And before I start, I just like to give a shout out to Nathan, because he actually sent me an email with everything relevant in case he doesn't make it, and he still made it. So he's actually hit.
Yeah. Didn't see him show up. I was about to wait for him.
And most of the, yeah, I'd appreciate it. I appreciate this because it means I don't have to remind people. Nathan, go ahead. What happened in the folk world?
All right. So in the past month, there's been some things in progress, but nothing has actually been pushed to Volk. A lot of the work has been based off of a separate repository that I've made, and that was sort of a test case for the eventual split of Volk from GNU Radio. Which, by the way, there's a call Tuesday at 3 Central. I forget what time it was. I think it was 2100 UTC.
I think so, yeah.
That'll be Tuesday. So anyone that has contributions to planning that migration, we'll just be finalizing the steps and actually coming up with a concrete schedule for what that'll look like.
Hey, Tom, the Volk working group call on the calendar is on Monday. You might want to fix that.
Oh, is it Tuesday? Let me verify, because I actually thought it was, legitimately thought it was Monday that it was supposed to be. So
actually, I thought it was Monday too, and then I checked the email that I sent. And I
oh
said
yeah, you did say Tuesday. Yep. Okay.
Does that still work for you, Tom and Jonathan?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so that'll be Tuesday. I think that's all I have for Volk. There's some discussion going on about FFTs and fixed point, but that's not really critical right now, especially for the official group. So that's the big thing. We're actually going to be scheduling the break off. And then I can start talk about the website a little bit too, but you might want to wait until we get there. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want to introduce your stuff?
I mean, I guess Volk is pretty much. I think that's pretty much. I think that's it for Volk right now, right?
Yeah, that's it for Volk.
Okay, so I just wanted, just before we do that, because Tommy said this on the calendar. I don't think everyone knows about this calendar, so I just posted the link in chat.
Yeah, that's fine. Not everybody knows about it because we haven't tried to publicize it. Partly we've still been trying to figure out the right way to go. We also have a Google Calendar that's now public, and I'm trying to figure out which is the better way to do this. I think actually
it was the Google Calendar that I noticed the wrong date on.
which I've already fixed that one. And honestly, it's not that hard for me to fix both of them at the same time. So I might just keep both of them around until I get sick of that or something. But there, I just fixed both of them.
Sorry about that, Nathan. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, let me just preface that. So we have a new task force, which is going to handle updating CGRAN and anything that's related to it. So we had a call this week on Monday. There's a couple of things that we are going to do. So first of all, CGRAN is going to be revamped, relaunched, and the new CGRAN will be fully automated because any other way it just won't work. And it'll be tightly integrated to PyBombs. So basically, anything that's an official recipe in PyBombs will automatically go onto CGRAN, and then there'll be this automatically generated website, and Nathan's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about that, and some other changes is that we'll be pulling the out of tree modules into an archive again. That the details have to be figured out, but it'll likely be on GitHub. CGRAN user, and I think one of the biggest changes here is that out-of-tree modules will or should have a manifest file as soon as we've sort of defined how that looks like. The manifest file in the out-of-tree module describes the whole thing in a way that can be read out automatically. It's going to be a JSON file, and then stuff like who's the maintainer and dependencies, the icon, and that kind of stuff will all be stored in the manifest file, and then Cgran can use that to automatically generate the page. And one of the people who have stepped in to work on this whole stuff is Nathan, and I'm just going to ask you to talk about the grist.
Yeah, so this is basically just the actual website that we're talking about right now. And there's two things at issue here. First is how the website is generated, and then the second is what it looks like. So during the call, there were several people that kind of had their pet technologies that they wanted to do something with. And there's already a prototype up that I've put together. So I'm proposing to give everyone like 2 weeks now. I said 3 weeks on Monday, but now it's closer to 2 weeks. So if you have some web desire to make a website, then do so with whatever technologies you want in about 2 weeks. I would appreciate knowing that you're working on something so that I don't move forward without you. Separately, if you're good with graphic design type things and want to like lay out a website, but you don't actually want to make one, then just put up a drawing of whatever you think would look pretty, and you can send that in pretty much any time. So hopefully we'll have a Cgran beta on a GNUradio.org address in about 3 weeks. And if you're interested in working on anything, let me know.
Cool. Yeah, we're expecting great things to happen here. Also, there's other things than just the website, the Cgran website, that we need help on. PyBombs is also an active project, that needs testing and everything. Maybe you have a recipe you want to add, etc., etc. Okay. Phil, do you want to talk about embedded stuff?
Just a little. I don't remember where I was at the last meeting, but I've got a script that automatically makes Zboard and ZC702 images that will work for other common platforms. And I've been just updating those on my Dropbox. I think I've been putting them on Dropbox so that they're pre-canned images for Zboard and ZC702 with toolchain. And if you have any requests for additional things, packages and things, let me know. And at the Hackfest, I want to go. One of the things I'm thinking of doing is going over the embedded documentation and clearing it up, and looking at the out-of-tree module compilation, cross-compilation, etc. So that's about it.
So Tim and Doug on the call. Tom, do you know anything about their groups?
No. We haven't really had. There hasn't been too much activity on either of those groups. I've been doing a lot of packet-based comms. I brought this up late last year, and that's kind of part of Tim's working group eventually. I can report that I do have over-the-air digital burst communications working with, where you can change the headers, and the header and the payload can actually be modulated differently. You can have different forward error corrections applied to them. So I feel like we're making pretty good progress there. So that should all be part of the FAST stuff eventually. Luckily, I think it's mostly kind of new blocks and how to manage the data flow, and nothing actually was required inside of the scheduler to kind of make this stuff work, which is, I think, a nice, that we've gotten there as far as message and stream tags and all those things for it. Coprocessor work, no, we haven't really made too much headway on that either, basically since Doug's work in December, which I think we've talked about in the past already, so I don't really have any update on that work. And then as far as GRC, I was hoping Sebastian was going to be here, but we need to get some information from him, especially because we have this the Qt GUI or the Qt port of GRC. I did notice today that he and Seth merged in a lot of Seth's work. So it looks like that there's good progress being made on there. I don't really know where that puts us as far as a usable product yet. So I've got to catch up with him soon. As I said on our call, I guess back in December, I was hoping that we'd have a beta version of the Qt version ready for use at FOSDEM. At this point, I'm feeling like that's not going to happen, but there has been work, and so I'd like to make sure that I catch up with where they are, and if I can, pull anything out of that, and if it's a usable product at this point. So we're just kind of waiting to hear from that group as far as what's going on there. I think that is the majority of Sebastian's focus right now. Then there's the handful of like bug fixes and very small feature requests that he's doing for the current version of GRC. But yeah, his big focus is the Qt stuff, and then the next focus that I'm going to try to push on him is the unit testing, trying to get a good unit, solid unit test for this stuff, so that we can avoid some of these issues that we've had.
Yeah, and Sebastian is pretty loaded with GNU Radio stuff, and I think
he's doing great work. I mean, he's doing fantastic work. There's a lot to happen here, a lot to be done, and all sorts of fronts on that project. So yeah, I hope I don't come off as disparaging the incredible amount, both the amount and quality of work he's done. But it is starting to expose some issues that we have with GRC that we need to address, and he knows it. He's aware of this issue.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is that one thing, or one advantage about the GRC stuff is these individual tasks, they can be well compartmentalized. So, like this is a good working group to get involved if you want to start doing some coding. Yeah, because there's lots of tasks that can be sort of spun out, I guess. Sebastian has a better overview of this, but. For example, the unit tasks in the Qt port, they're completely orthogonal. There's no overlap there. Yeah. So, if this is something anyone wants to start getting involved and wants to help coding, please do. Yes, I'm pretty sure Sebastian can use a lot more helpers than he has now.
Yes, and he does have a couple of guys working with him on the Qt stuff. So so it's nice to see that that there's a lot to be done, and that there is a path to add people to help him to help those projects go along.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the working groups. Okay. So last chance to say anything. Otherwise, I'll hang out.
Yeah, just our quick roundup on release schedule. We don't have one yet. I guess the only thing is we will be pushing out a patch fix for 3.7.6 for this virtual sync issue in GRC. That should be coming out probably shortly. But we don't have a schedule for 3.7.7 as of yet. But in the next month or so, we should probably be coming to terms with how that one's going to be shaping up.
Hey Tom, how solid is the 3.8 stuff?
Solid is in like what our plans are for it.
All right. There's a tag for it, isn't there?
There's a tag for it, and we also have a page that's been used to catalog the ideas for what we have accomplished, hope to accomplish, tasks left to do. Really more it's just an ideas page right now, but yeah, so we don't really have a setup for that much at all. And again, there's still nothing really driving that release. Honestly, the thing in my mind that's driving that release is going to be updating our dependency list. allowing us to update to more modern versions of Boost and Swig and and compilers and things like that to allow us to take advantage of some of the new stuff, because the dependencies right now are actually tend to be quite old. The minimum dependencies that we require. So that's what's pushing it from my perspective. And then I know that there's a lot of these individual scheduler issues that have been around for a while that are going to be the other the main motivation for the 3.8 release. But yeah, nothing immediate.
All right, thanks.
And Jonathan, you wanted to?
I'm starting a betting pool on how many times I have to tag 3761.
All right, we'll put that on the website.
You mean regarding 3.8?
3.8 and 3.7.7, or yeah, 3.7. I guess 3.7.6.1 is really the more important point.
So I'm ready to tag that now. I'm just waiting for the inevitable, but there's still this issue as well. Email. But
okay, that's good. So that's the call to people.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else happens, it'll get tagged tonight, and I'll build a DVD overnight and upload everything.
Great, yeah. So if anybody does have anything, let us know.
Yeah, I'm writing the patch for the TSB stuff right now, so I might have it tonight. For the spinning.
Yeah, I don't mind including that as well. The only delta right now between 3.7.6 and 6.1 is about 4 commits on the main branch, but be happy to include that one.
And I just put the link to our proposed changes for 3.8 into the IRC channel.
Okay. I mean, this has been a solid hour of stuff, so it's a good time to call it a day. Next call is February the 19th. No, wait a minute. Yeah, 19th. February the 19th. So that will be 2.5 weeks after FOSDEM. So next there will be no FOSDEM announcements next time for the first time in a while. I'll be putting up a wiki page for that soon. Comment on that, and okay. Bye bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.